Ladies and gentlemen, welcome very much back to The Positive Edge, a podcast where we discover how we as young individuals can better ourselves and the world around us. We talk about everything from finding motivation and practicing self-care in today's day and age.
And we are your hosts. Daniel is a commercial pilot and motivational speaker, and I'm Juliana, a social media consultant and content creator. We're both in our early 20s trying to navigate life, all while documenting that with you and sharing our tips and learnings along the way.
That is correct. And speaking of learning, Juliana, take us through the last week. In the previous episode, we obviously had some challenges to each other. How did that go for you? And what was your challenge?
My challenge was to become more structured. It's something that I recently wanted to focus a lot on. And just trying to find a system where I can consistently create content and kind of figure out a good workflow for me to do that, like on a weekly basis. And I think it went quite well. I tried to edit our first YouTube video ever.
Nice, yeah.
And it should be live now. And it was a really fun task because I'm not really used to like video editing to that extent. So I played around with like After Effects and like cutting different clips and...
Question, do you really think it was fun? You used the word fun. I'm just checking up on that. Do you think it was fun, or maybe after the first hour or so then it just became more...
I did enjoy it. It's just my laptop is really slow at the moment. We talked about like I should invest in like a bigger laptop for sure. For dedicated to like video editing, because I want to get much more into like After Effects and doing those like graphics that kind of moves and things, just like this one.
Yeah, and she wants, what do you call it, sparkles and little princesses sparkles and everything.
But I did do some really cool Instagram tags that kind of pops up and like track our faces while we do that.
Yep.
So I want to get much more into that, but I just need a stronger computer to do that.
Yeah.
And so rendering took a really long time, but in the end it sorted out. And
so
things,
what was your challenge?
I did enjoy to become more structured.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I did definitely get stuff done. Yeah. But again, I need to like figure out a proper system, and it's just about like trial and error, figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. It definitely, like some tasks, just like YouTube editing and things, it took longer than I expected initially, and then other tasks, it doesn't take as long as you might think. So it's about like finding out what like works and what doesn't work. What was your challenge, Daniel?
Well,
I think you forgot.
I think I've, I mixed things up. I was under the impression throughout the last week that I had to become more structured. But I'm assuming if you go back to the previous episode and listen to that, you will figure out that I was supposed to do yoga.
Yeah.
And I've done yoga before in the gym.
Just not this week.
In fitness. And it was good. You get a good stretch.
But you didn't do it this week.
Yoga's fun.
You know what that means, right? That we will have to do like a bonus episode where we do yoga. You know what? There's a thing called, I think it's called acro yoga, where you like do two-person. Okay. We can like, do yoga together. We could do like really fun things. I think we should do that.
Okay, I think that's a fair penalty, as you call it, or a flag if you play American football. All right, so just looking at what we are going to be talking about today, look, the reality before was basically that we always used to do a little brainstorm before we start the episode. Mm-hmm. But just being 100% honest, we actually just agreed right before to sort of do it in a more creative way, if you will. So we haven't really prepared in the same way. We thought it would be fun to do an episode where we had a main topic and we just took it from there.
Yeah, so, we do that with like some episodes for sure, and then other episodes we do it much more like fact-based. But it's about finding that balance, because obviously there's some topics that we talk about, like finding out a good habit or something like that, where it was very much like fact-based. We took up different studies, and like meditation, when we talk about that, like what happens in the brain when you meditate and so on. And I think that's really relevant. Yeah. But then there are other topics where we kind of just go with the flow, and we still want this podcast to just be like really chatty.
But with that being said, then I think it's important when you want to talk about yoga and habits that you've actually done your research, right? You've done your homework, and I think we both agree on that. probably the first thing we ever agree on. But no, I'm kidding. But yeah, I agree. So this episode is more chatty, I suppose.
Yeah. But it's also a fun way for you guys to like get to know us a little bit more. Today we're going to talk about how to find new skill sets and kind of experiment and figuring out ways to constantly learn and evolve as a human being.
Yeah. And basically just learning new stuff. Why is it important to learn new stuff? And I'm here referring to the, new ways of doing things, looking apart from your job or whatever you use the majority of your time on.
Yeah.
It could be reading a book. It could be learning a new sport. It could be a lot of different things, but just why it's important for you and me and Juliana.
What's a skill set you recently learned?
I would say I've gotten very disciplined in reading, at least for the last, I would say 4 months or so. I will admit I've been flying a lot this week and yesterday and so on. So it's always a balance thing. I haven't been reading a lot this week, to be honest, but I would say looking over the last 4 months, I think it's the most I've ever read of books and pages in my life. And the background story to that is simply I, with a good friend of mine, he sort of challenged me to read 20 books in 2020. And yeah,
that's a good challenge.
Yeah, it's a very good challenge, and a very good friend for challenging me to do that. So that's why I'm reading so much.
Do you know the website Goodreads?
I'm using the app Goodreads.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, exactly.
I used to use that like years ago, and I did challenges too, like yearly challenges. It's really fun. And I feel like it's a very underrated social media platform because you can connect with so many people. I've connected with a lot of people who likes a certain genre of books, and then they do like Q&As with authors too. But I don't think it's that popular with like nonfiction. It's more like fantasy books or anything like that, like more fiction books, in my opinion. I don't know, but that's what I've used it for.
Right now I'm reading a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Very good book. It's also one of the books I referred to in a previous episode. Yeah. As the title refers to, it's simply just 7 habits of how you can become more efficient, with doing things in your life. Yeah. Yeah. So what about you? A skill that you've recently learned?
Well, just I'm getting better at like video editing. That's one of them. And like After Effects. It's really fun. Other than that, like self-care practices, I guess I am expanding getting better at yoga too. And meditation, I've become much more consistent with that.
I think it's about doing things and learning new skills that you actually want to do. Look, if we look at school and all of that system, we all know that there's always classes that you're not a big fan of. There's always, courses where you wish or where you say that I like this, but I'm not a big fan of this. Now, what we're referring to is primarily just learning the skills that you really wanted to learn, like video editing or making a podcast. For us, we've learned a lot of things with how to set up microphones, how to do it in a proper way with the video we are sharing with you guys and so on. So you don't have to say it's a specific skill. I want to get better at writing. It could also be a topic or a job even. So taking the example of podcasting for us as well, we've learned a lot of things in that process of doing that. So you can end up learning.
There was a bee and now it's gone. Oh, did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good.
Podcasting has been a really fun thing.
It has.
Yeah, we recommend it to a lot of people. It's a fun way to connect, of course. But also, just find out, research different topics. Even editing, I find really interesting, just editing audio. Right. Yeah, it's things that you don't really think about, how many nuances there is to voices and
and
how we talk. Yeah.
And especially the whole researching part. Look, we're learning, Juliana and I, we're learning new things every time we're doing the podcast. Because then we're reading up on something and it's teaching us new things. So to be honest with you guys, it's also an excuse for us to better ourselves, obviously, as we say in the introduction, but really just learning new things. Yeah. And if you're in a position of you feel, I wouldn't say stuck, but you feel, you're working a lot. You're spending a lot of time on one or two things maybe, and you become not tired of it, but sort of exhausted at the whole thing. Then consider, all right, maybe it's time for me to not change a job, but do something differently on the side. Maybe go down 1, 2, 3 hours per week, and then start. It could be boxing, it could be a sport thing, it could be yoga, it could be reading a book even. Reading books is a very good disciplinary action. Because if you tell yourself, all right, if I'm reading 10, 20, or 30 minutes a day, then you're sort of building that habit of reading and building your discipline. Look, for me, when I'm reading, I usually just read 30 minutes max at a time. But when I'm reading, I'm 100% focused on that book and trying to learn from that book.
So what could some benefits be from learning new skill sets? Let's talk about that.
Benefits of learning new skills is basically disciplinary actions, right? You tell yourself that you need to become good at this specific task, and if it's important for you, actually get it done. Now I understand that there's always different potential excuses that can get in the way, but you got to stay focused and stay on track to reach whatever your new skill is that you want to learn. Yeah. What do you think is a...
I think that there's so many benefits to like learning new skill sets. Like there might even be that you like that new skill set so much that you want to change your career path. It could even be that. So for instance, if you're in a job right now and you feel like, oh, it's getting a little bit boring at a time, like then practicing something that and making time for something that you suddenly find really both like expand your mind and makes you evolve as a human being, that's just a good thing. Because again, I don't feel like you have to choose like one specific path that you have to keep going down. Like you can always like deroute and figure out like, and also like find ways to like incorporate that into your new or your current job.
All right.
Yeah,
I agree.
So for instance, if your boss suddenly comes in and says like, oh, we need to do, let's just take an example of like video editing. And then you're like, oh, I actually know how to do that. So just,
Let me tell you.
It's always good to like grow as a human being.
A little example here is, as many of you probably know, I'm a pilot also. And given the fact with the whole virus situation, it's sort of been put on pause, if you will. But for about 2 weeks ago, we're in contact with a skydiving union. So basically a little club or organization of skydivers. And obviously in order to skydive, you need a pilot. And I asked them if I could be their pilot. And first they said, no, it doesn't really work. But then I talked to one of the guys in charge of the skydiving organization. And I mentioned I was also able to edit video. And he basically, and I'm quoting here, he said, did you just fall down from heaven? At first, because it was formulated in a little bit different way, I thought, is he mad now or what's the point? But no, it was so perfect timing because they needed one. And obviously I did my homework and research on their Facebook page and web page. They didn't have any videos, they didn't have anything. So I suggested I could participate in the creation of that. And he all of a sudden got very interested. And so basically it's a win-win. They get one that can edit videos for them, and I get to fly a little Cessna around and sort of get people to jump out of it. That's cool and fun.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great example. Yeah. That's just what we talked about. Wow. Yeah. That's really cool.
And it's the same really in the digital age we're living in right now. All companies, workplaces, even just friends, young people are starting to make vlogs and TikToks and video editing and so on, and it's really needed in companies as well. I suppose in the bigger companies, it's all primarily people around the 50s years of age who are. It's a generalization, but you find a lot of companies where it's the, what do you call it? Is it the baby boomers, the generation, right?
Generation X, I believe.
No, well, okay, so I'm gonna say baby boomers.
grandparents. I like baby boomers, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I totally know what you mean. Like that older generation, they haven't grown up with social media, so obviously they don't know anything about it really, except for like Facebook or something.
Right.
But like TikTok and all those like really fun new ways of communicating to people and creating content, that's just that's like really our advantage in our generation, because a lot of us, like, we know how to do that, and it's very underrated. Like, it's only gonna become much more important for like communicating, especially like brand wise.
Agree.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I get to think of, I used to live in the States, which is why I have my American accent, I suppose. But I used to live there as an exchange student throughout high school. And I just saw on Facebook for the last 2 or 3 weeks, a host family, they have a little kid, and he's about, I believe, about 9 or 10 years old. And the host mom, the family I lived with, they have gotten him to do basically reading stories live on Facebook. Now, of course, as a parent, you can always argue, oh, I don't want my kid to do that and so on. But I think it's very important also to teach your kids how the digital world is working, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because sure, they get what they get in school, but the reality is that the school system is still, and as always, very much behind. So you learn the basic stuffs, right? Mathematics, physics, blah blah blah, and so on. And of course, there are certain schools where you can learn video editing. But if you become aware of it at a young age, then I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and there's so many essential skills. We just talked about that before recording. Like, there's so many essential skills that you really need to learn throughout your life to like do well. For instance, like how to figure out how to get your finances together, and for instance, like how to use social media and not get like totally addicted and sucked into it, but still use it to your advantage. Like, there's so many skills that we don't really know, or that we don't really learn in school, but that we just have to figure out, besides like outside of school, how to do it, because it's really important. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. And I actually think it's most of the people you see who start businesses, it's always primarily, at least what I know of, is people that they've learned themselves the skills. If you think about it, in the competition in the bigger companies, let's say in the finance companies, banks and so on, it's all something all people learn in school, at least the mathematics side of it, if you will. It
depends on it, because there's some creative skills that you can't really learn. You just have to try and figure it out in your own way. For instance, like painting or something. Yeah. Just have to express yourself.
Indeed.
But anyway, going back to like the skill sets, I think in terms of like a leadership or like entrepreneurship context, I think learning skill sets and figuring out how to do all the different tasks is a good thing too, because that basically means you can run your entire company by yourself if you have to. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do like wear all those hats. Like, you can totally hire people to do certain things for you that you can't, like, you're not that good at, but it's still a really essential thing, I think, to know how to do those jobs.
Agreed.
Yeah. So again, this just an example. Anyway, let's get some tips on if you want to learn a new skill.
Yeah.
What can you do?
So, you know what? I can't really stop thinking. If you look across YouTube for different videos, primarily where you're being taught something, there's always this company called
Skillshare?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they always say in the start,
Skillshare, please sponsor us.
Well, yes, Skillshare.
That would be nice.
No, but they always say in the start, ladies, they don't say ladies, but they say, this video is sponsored by Skillshare, and then blah, blah,
really
and
cool
so on.
plug.
So I get to think of that. So, and I want to give a shout out to Skillshare, because it's
a good platform.
Well,
brilliant platform.
no, really, it's when I think of it, it's actually up in my head now, because I've seen
of the
so
name
many
and the branding.
No, primarily because I've seen so many videos.
Yeah, that is actually.
And you
crazy,
always hear it. So great job for you guys at Skillshare doing the whole influencer marketing here. It's very well done.
We want to be part of it.
No, seriously, it's a good job. Cool. It really is. But if you want to learn new skills, first of all, you need to figure out what you want to learn, then figure out where you can learn it, And then basically just answer the what, why, and where questions.
Or you can just browse around on platforms, for instance, Skillsets is also great. I'm a really big fan of Coursera. That's just universities like providing often free courses. Like you can buy the certificate in the end if you want to have it to like display on your LinkedIn profile. But otherwise, I think most of the courses are just free. So it's, for instance, I did an online course at Yale University about the science of well-being, which I've talked about briefly on a previous episode that I was a big fan of. It was so great to learn about like psychology and different self-care practices and what it actually does to our brain. So anyway, that's just how I really, just like browsing around, figuring out what sounds exciting to you, and then kind of just try it. I think it's like with skills and figuring out what you like and don't like, it's just about like trial and error, figuring out if it works for you or if it doesn't.
Yeah, and we all know that feeling you get when you have to do something you don't want to do. So,
but it's also that feeling of like finding something that suddenly really excites you. That's a great
excitement
feeling.
is the proper word here. My point is just that be honest to yourself. Don't say don't say just because I've been curious at this once, I'm going to spend the next weeks on learning this. Make sure you're excited about it, because if you're excited about it, you want to do it. If you want to do it, there's a bigger potential, bigger potential for you actually learning it. Yeah. So you have to learn something. Yeah. How do you approach it yourself?
Oh yeah, there's certainly a certain amount of like discipline that goes into it, I guess. So again, like making time for that, like prioritizing it if it's important to you. I think you can totally manage to make room in your calendar for that certain skills if you want to develop that. Yeah,
I agree.
So scheduling it in your calendar. For instance, every single Monday, I'm going to spend 3 hours to take that online course, or like watch some videos on video editing, like experiment with it, try it out. Yeah.
Good stuff.
What do you think?
I can really, on my own behalf, it's very much, I guess I'm sort of laser locked, if you will. So if there's something I really want to learn, primarily for video editing, I learn along the way. So I know that I want to make a video and it needs to be cool. But then for each video, there's more stuff I want to add to it. And if I don't know how to do it, I just Google or YouTube how to edit this video in Final Cut Pro in this way. Yeah. And then I learn it every time. Sure, it's like everything else. You need to stay updated. You need to keep it up to date. Otherwise, your brain simply just forget it. So that might mean when I have to do it again in 2 or 3 weeks, I've forgotten it. But then I do it again and again. So that's maybe one of the downsides of only doing it once or twice, is that your brain forgets it. But I'm learning along the way, and it's just a different way of doing it, really.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. I think I can often fall into the trap of just getting really obsessed with something.
That's good.
I think that's an interesting point to bring up in this context, because like acquiring a skill, it often requires that you kind of get sucked into it.
Yeah, obsessed. No, it's a perfect word.
I once saw there was this talk with like Tim Blanks and J.W. Anderson, who's a famous fashion designer, and I could so relate to the way that his mind worked, because it was very, very fascinating to hear him talk about the whole process of like creating clothes and all of that, because he gets really obsessed with like a certain topic, whether that be a historical figure or just shape or colors or patterns or something, but he just gets like really sucked into it. And he actually said that he hated the process of like creating a collection, but he loved the result of it. And I can kind of relate to that. I really want to love the process of learning something, but in the end, I love in the end where I'm like, oh, it's finished, or like I've done that video editing or something like that.
I have a lot of respect for the whole loving the process thing. Personally,
yeah, me too.
Personally for me, I'm more, let's say I'm more focused at the end result, because I know for most of the times the process aren't always fun. It's hard work, tough work. It could be mentally frustrating even. It is certainly for me. Even, going to pilot school, it was tough work, hard work. It wasn't fun. There were a lot of, failures that I could learn from in that process. But yeah, I understand what you're referring to.
Yeah. Yeah, and in that book that I'm currently reading called Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about how it's really bad to be result-driven, but I'm totally like that too. But he talks about like creating a system that works for you and like falling in love with that system. So for instance, like creating a morning routine that really works for you and that just gets you into that flow. And then going from there.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, but it's something that I really want to work on too.
And even speaking about the book Atomic Habits and just in general, if you're in that position, which I'm assuming you are since you're watching and listening to the podcast, of you wanting to better yourself and learn new skills and so on, there's a lot of people out there who's telling you how to do it. Even us, we're coming with suggestions. But listen, what I would advise you to do is basically just pick and choose. Take a little bit from everything. But also with that being said, if you're only watching one thing, then I will say it's better to take almost 100% from that one thing as to not having anything to learn from. You need to think about your whole life, how it's built up. We, as humans, are taught from a young age that the way you learn and the way you better yourself is to have a mentor. Take school, you have teachers. Take football, you have a football coach. Take life, you even have a life coach there. Or take your company, you have different guidance wherever you go. And it's the same here. If you're trying to better yourself, pick and choose from different places. If you don't have, or if you only have one place, then primarily stick to that one place. If you believe in it, it's at least better than not having a place, I would say.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but I totally get it. You can get a lot of like mixed signals from like personal development videos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because some people say one thing and then other people say another. So
and notice, sorry to interrupt, notice that even the guys who are doing all of these videos, I'm sure most of you might be familiar with Tony Robbins and Les Brown. It all sounds so very good. And it is very good. But know that they're humans too.
Yeah.
They have cheat days. They have days where they don't, take massive action, as Tony Robbins is saying all the time.
Yeah, just like us. Like, we don't have everything together.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Yeah, we don't.
No, we don't.
We're very honest about that.
Of course.
Again, we just want to like create a space where people feel comfortable sharing too, and we can be really open and honest about like our journey about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm imagining like a circle where we all are sitting. Hi, my name is...
Sitting and holding each other's hands. Is that what you mean?
Sort of make it sound like it. But if that's what you guys want to do, I guess it's okay. After the virus, of course, after the virus. Yeah. Be honest to yourself and just pick and choose from different people. And remember that there are people too. And find a path that works for you. Is what I would recommend.
Yeah.
And also, meanwhile, remember to also live life. I don't know what your current life situation is, if you're working a lot or not working a lot. Either way, live life. If that means going out for a beer with the boys or going for cosmopolitans with the girls, or maybe not alcohol, it could be just sitting in a park soaking up some sun.
Tea?
Do that for an hour or two. Live life. Look, this sounds harsh, but I've gotten to a point I was very focused when I started to listen to Les Brown and Tony Robbins. I want to do that, and I still want to better myself all the time. But the reality, hardcore reality, is really you could potentially go out. Even I could go out later today and drive, and I could die in the car in an accident.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that it won't happen, but that's the reality. And even though I'm in the whole process of pursuing, getting a better career, sort of figuring out the whole life game, you also got to live life.
That's true.
Meanwhile, you really have to.
Yeah, that's true. Like you shouldn't become too obsessed that you forget to like enjoy the small things in life.
Oh no, you can be super obsessed. You can be obsessed like crazy. But while you're obsessed like crazy, you need to live life also.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, okay. All right, I think you're right.
Oh, okay, should we do a challenge for next week?
I guess we should.
Theme song.
Boom.
So, I guess that means we should do some yoga. Is that the challenge?
I can't really say anything, I suppose, so she's the dictator.
Do you want to give me another challenge?
Take a cold shower.
You've already used that.
Yes, but you only did it once, Juliana. You're supposed to do it all week.
We're not very good at these challenges. You know what I think we should do?
Nope.
Is to include the audience to do the challenges with us and share their thoughts.
Okay, But the reality is, guys, we all love you, to the ones of you who are listening. But hey, we don't get any feedback on Anchor.fm. We need the voice messages. She's been saying it for 5 times. So, you know, we got to include the audience somehow, and that's a good idea. But I think until then, you should do. You can
always, if you want to submit anything anonymously or anything like that, you can DM us and just let us know that we shouldn't include your name or something.
Yeah, that sounds like a deal. All right, so challenge for next week. What is your challenge?
And here on YouTube, we even have a comment section.
Yeah, so comment below.
Do that.
And hit that subscribe button.
And the notification bell.
And the like button. Yeah. But we still got to talk challenges.
Okay, mine is like cold shower for what? How long? 10 seconds?
Your goal is 60 seconds.
60 seconds?
You need to go from warm to cold. Don't start with all of that. You take a normal shower and then you switch it up.
I think last time you did 30 seconds.
I know. That's why I'm saying
no,
the goal.
60 seconds.
The goal is 60 seconds, meaning at the last day you need to be at 60 seconds. But here it's really consistency. Start with 30. Start with 30 and then turn it up.
Fine. Okay.
Okay. And your challenge for me?
It's to do yoga.
Okay.
I can do it with you if you want me to show you.
Yeah.
Let's do like the most advanced one and see how you keep up. We will do a beginner video.
Guys, thank you so much for listening once again. Do not forget to leave the 5-star review. Follow us on Spotify. Click all of the things you can possibly
share this with a friend.
Yeah. Good one.
It would be really cool to like expand our community and get to talk to some of you.
Yeah, for sure. That's really why we're here.
Get the conversation going.
Indeed. It is always going.
And let's just take a moment to thank everyone who already have left reviews on, for instance, Apple Podcast and has shadow episodes. It really means a lot.
Indeed, yeah. All right. Juliana's Instagram name is...
@Juliana Chow.
And mine is @DanielsPilotLife. If you do have any questions, please do
DM
not...
us.
Yeah, DM us.
Slide into DMs.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.